Okay, so this is our third video of the month explaining what we're covering with our students with regards to character concepts, right? What aspect of respect we're talking about with beginners, right? Taking the initiative and where we are with that with our higher belts or orange belts and above, right? Giving you some insights in terms of how the Black Belt Club Challenge works, at least the second half of that. And then finally talking a little bit more about the gift of the goose and motivating students in our leadership program, right? So let's take a look at what we're going to be covering. All right, this week with beginners, we're going to be talking about respect for our family, right? Now, kids are no different than most of us. We tend to hurt the ones we love, right? And we tend to be least respectful to our family because they, are always there for us and we can count on them, right? But obviously that's not a positive thing, and we want to talk to them about the importance of showing respect for their family, right? And what we also want to do is make sure we give them positive examples to follow instead of negatives. And what I mean by that is instead of saying like, don't put your feet up on the table at dinner, right, which is obviously something you shouldn't be doing, right? Instead, we want to give them a positive action to take, like, I want you to sit with your feet on the floor when you're eating dinner, right? That way they don't start coming up with other solutions. All right, well, I'm not going to put my feet on the table, I'll put them on your lap, right? So we want to give them, a positive thing like sit with your feet on the floor at the dinner table as an example of respect, right? Next week we'll be trending into talking about how we show respect to our friends, but talking about respect with our family is really important. That's what we'll be covering this week. All right, this week in class with everyone who's an orange belt and above, we're going to be talking about the concept of taking the initiative, right? And in particular, we're going to talk about the fear that's kind of natural when it comes to starting anything that's kind of new for us, right? The fear of success, fear of failure is all pretty much what feels making a fool of yourself, right? Are all really common things, and we want our students to understand that that's normal, right? And that's your real test of courage, is to proceed even though you're a little bit scared, right? And then related to that is the idea of being okay asking for help, right? Because that's going to help us to overcome that fear if we have someone who can show us the way or can talk us through some things that are rattling us a little bit, right? So that's what we'll be talking about with the orange belts in class this week, the idea of taking the initiative, going through fear and asking for help where we need it, right? Really important for success in the long run for any student. Our students in Black Belt Club and Leadership Team working on their challenge this week, right, we want to explain a little bit about how the second half of the challenge works, which is the at-home responsibility chart that we want them to follow through on. Right? Now, we're going to be asking them to follow through on 3 different categories of chores. Right? The first one is something that they do for themselves. Right? That could be something like packing your own lunch. It could be something like cleaning your room, right? The second category is something that they do for the family, right? Like cleaning the dinner table after everybody's eaten, right? Or taking out the garbage that everybody uses the garbage, right? And then finally should be something that they do for someone else, right? Like an example of that may be walking the dog, right? And cleaning up after the dog, or helping your mom with a task that she routinely does. Right? Whatever it is, it should be something that they do for someone else, right? Because we want them to understand that they need to be responsible for themselves, right? We also want them to understand that they're part of a community and that they should contribute. And then finally, that they're a person who's not a dependent all the time. They're rather someone who can help other people out, right? And do something purely for them that doesn't, immediately benefit them, right? So that's what the challenge is going to ask them to do. Right? And they get different number of points for completing a chore depending on how promptly they do it. Right? And so you have a different point system, and it's explained in the challenge with regards to if you do it after being asked multiple times, right? Which is obviously not particularly good. You get very few number of points for that. Right? Doing it while only being reminded once to do it. Right? And then finally, the best one we get the most points for is doing it without being asked at all. Right? So they'll have those 3 different chores, and they'll have to complete them a certain number of times depending on what belt they are to complete the challenge. Right? But that's what we'll be going through with all of our students in Black Belt Club and Leadership Team this month for the challenge. All right, so as we continue on our journey with leadership this month and talking about the concept of the gift of the goose with students, I want to point out 2 really important components of doing this effectively and effectively influencing them. Which is making sure that whatever you're praising is rare and something that's specific, right? So what do I mean by that? If we have 10 kids in the class who are all kicking at belt height and I praise any one of them, none of them are going to improve, none of them are going to perform, none of them are going to feel particularly special, right? But if there's one kid who's kicking at head height and I can point that out for everybody else, it'll motivate everybody else to perform as well and make that person who's kicking at head height, feel better about themselves and really encourage them to continue going forward. So that's the rare thing. There aren't many people doing it, right? And then specific, right, what we're talking about is not saying something very general like, hey, you're kicking so well, right? Instead saying specifically, I love that you're kicking at your head height, right? That's a specific correction, right, or specific praise, which can motivate the other people to perform because they know exactly what you mean. Instead of saying, you're doing so well, the other people don't know what that person is doing well, so they can't be motivated. And the person who's doing well doesn't know what they're doing well, right? So they don't feel particularly proud of that one thing because they don't know what to attach it to, right? So rare and specific, that's what we'll be talking about in Gung Ho, in leadership this week. Okay, so hopefully that was really helpful for you, right, in terms of understanding what we're covering with our students in class and what we're covering with your family in class, right? If it was, please let us know, right? Maybe let us know in the comment section below or giving us a like so we know that this is something that's beneficial for you and we should keep doing, right? And if you think it's something that's really beneficial and maybe would help someone else, that feel free to share this video with them so they can find out a little bit about what we're covering in class and hopefully their family can benefit from it as well, right? Thanks so much. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.